What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to number 16 of Dark Horse Discourse. So, first off, let's take a look at got some awesome goodies in the mail. So, received Reaper Destroyer. Was definitely excited to pick this bad boy up. So, this was probably the first campaign I ever backed, I think. Yeah, I think that and Death, Death, Death were the first two that I backed. So, just super excited to dig into these. Might review them probably in the next week or two on here. But yeah, that Dale Keown cover, just awesome. Also has some fantastic print art by my boy Joe Ball there. So awesome piece there. So I think the campaign is closed, but if not, go to Indiegogo and back Reaper Destroyer. It's absolutely beautiful. I skimmed through some of the pages just to take a look at the art, and it's just very, very well put together. So, and then I think he's going to do a second chance campaign, possibly on Kickstarter. So if you did miss it on Indiegogo, you can pick it up on there. So, yeah, excited for that one. Let's see who's in the chat. We have Zombie Boy. Welcome. How's it going? We have Mr. Corey Barton. How's it going, man? So I was just thinking literally yesterday, like, man, I have not seen Corey Barton, whether it was on YouTube or on Twitter. Man, we got to see some more Andromenoids art. And I mean, same goes for the that project that you and your brother are working on. Just not seeing enough Barton art on Twitter these days. So come on. We have Mr. Mikey Gotts. Welcome. Thanks for being here. And Dante Erics. Thanks for being here. How's it going? So I think let's start off today with some BA recommends. I was able to actually go to the movies this weekend for the first time in it's been a year and a half. And the last time I went and saw a re-release of I think it was the second Dark Knight movie. So obviously Nolan verse, so that was exciting. But I haven't seen a new movie since actually since the night I launched my Indiegogo campaign. So it's been basically 2 years since Oppenheimer came out. So yeah, got to see Accountant too. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Here we go. I wouldn't be surprised if he appears. Right, as soon as you say his name, he'll show up. So my first BA recommends, which this shouldn't be a shocker since the first book was so good, is Immortal Rising #2 by our friend Aaron C. And we'll actually be promoting this book as well a little bit later on. But yeah, one thing I mentioned, with the first issue is I'm typically not a fan of manga or manga style art in general. However, I do like Jose Garcia's art, who is the artist on this book, and believe he does the pencils, the inks, and the colors, possibly the letters too. Um, but I do like his art, and it has a nice mixture of manga and kind of Western style art. But this was a very, very fun read. The first one was an awesome intro. Really good action, really good pacing. They did a really good job introducing the characters. Giving you their motivations. But this one, it had like it really just got going right off the bat. It introduces a new character. That's how it starts off the book, and has some nice witty humor. Again, gives you a little bit of background on the character, some of his motivations, and then like boom, it's like right into a large fight and action scene. Reintroducing many of the characters from the first book, but yeah, just really good action throughout it. Definitely has that Dungeons and Dragons and even Lord of the Rings feel to it. And Jose's art just does such a good job depicting, especially the fight scenes. So, like here is a good example, of a scene here where one of the characters is just slinging out a bunch of arrows against some goblins. And but yeah, just some really, really crisp, clean colors, and just really, really well done. So again, this is definitely anybody that's a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, elves, ogres, that type of thing. This is a great read. He's successfully funded on Indiegogo, and I think he's creeping up towards $1,000 on his storefront and Fund My Comics. So definitely go back this campaign. Uh, I mean, for an indie book, it's top notch. I mean, it stands out. It's professionally made. I mean, you can tell that Aaron did a lot of work on this, and just it was all about quality. And that's exactly what we need more of in indie is just quality books that stand out. And he definitely did that. So highly, highly recommend Immortal Rising 2 Burnt Offerings, which you can get on Fund My Comic. The second recommendation is going to be a legacy comic or a graphic novel, and that's going to be the Born Again, the Daredevil series with Frank Miller behind the pen. And so obviously that's getting some discussion lately, or at least that title, because of the Disney series with Daredevil. But the comic is definitely better. I did enjoy the show. I don't want to give spoilers on it, but overall enjoyable. But Frank did just such a good job at actually pushing Daredevil like all the way to his own hell on earth, basically. Just making sure that the Kingpin had just stripped him of not just his friends, his job, his bank accounts. I mean, everything. It just he pushed him like basically right to the edge, right, and to the point where he was essentially dead. And that really added some major stakes to it. It really helped you get connected to the character. You're just like hoping that he survives, and that there'll be just he had so many reasons to get back to the fight essentially. Whereas the TV show, it was more of a, well, he lost somebody and then he witnessed some just normal things that a vigilante would witness. Uh, that would drive them basically to get back to the fight. But it wasn't like he got pushed so hard and he was nearing death or anything like that. So Frank did just such a good job at just painting that picture of Daredevil literally being born again, like being nearly killed and having to start over. And his writing is just so picturesque. Like he does such a good job describing with dialogue and inner monologue what's happening, and that marries so well with the art. And I prefer his art over, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Masuccelli. But I do enjoy Masuccelli's art in this, and it is very fitting for the story. But yeah, there's some great covers to the individual issues throughout, and just a very, very good series. And I really liked how he depicted Kingpin, like the art for Kingpin, and just how evil Frank, made Kingpin was just so well done. So it's absolutely a book that every, aspiring writer, new writer should pick up and learn from. It's just so well done. And the other thing that's really impressive about it too is when it comes to like Sin City and Dark Knight Returns, for example, he is more focused on like an individual POV or maybe two POVs at a time, and not really jumping from POV to POV or location to location, which I think was very fitting for those books. But for this one, he does a really good job making it easy to follow, where he's jumping from character to character in different locations, but it's not hard to follow. You don't get lost in it. So it's just really well done. So obviously, highly recommend everybody pick that up and read it. If you haven't, I'm sure you have, but absolutely fantastic. The third recommendation is going to be The Accountant too. So I went and saw that this weekend, and it was fantastic. Um, I would give it probably an 8 out of 10, whereas I would have gave I give The Accountant one literally a 10 out of 10. Um, with this one, there is more forced humor. We watched the trailer a couple weeks, but it was done well. It was a very funny movie, despite how dark and gritty it is. But it had less hand-to-hand combat compared to Accountant One, which that was like such a great aspect of the first movie was there's so much close like hand-to-hand combat that was really intense and brutal, where this one had maybe one or two scenes. There was a lot more gun action essentially, but really really well done. Essentially a nice heartwarming story in the way it closed out just like the first one, and they did a really good job in making you intrigued in the different avenues that are going on in the story and how it all tied together. So really, really well done. This is something that does deserve to make a lot of money in the box office, and I'm sure they could continue to make more if it does well. So definitely go and check out The Accountant too. Fantastic. Mike Goetz says, "I only like DB and Death Notes manga. How dare you compare Disney to Frank Miller?" Yeah, it's not comparable in terms of quality. I mean, if they would have just followed his comic, right, similar to what they did with Sin City and 300, and just put it in movie format, it would have been much, much better. I do like that they had the Punisher in the TV series because I do enjoy John Bernthal as the Punisher, but that was even questionably done compared to obviously the Netflix series. Because yeah, the Disney series is not nearly as good as the Netflix. Still enjoyable. Would still recommend people watch it, but you can tell that it's a different crew and it's just not as well put together. So. So, first thing I wanted to talk about today was marketing. Seeing a lot of tweets, especially from some well known voices, right? Like Eric July talking about marketing in the indie space. Um, you see folks from time to time pushing what they would call, I don't know, high quality marketing, or a lot of it's just common sense. But I guess to an average Joe, maybe it would seem groundbreaking or something. I'm not sure. Things like, hey, have a sign up list. Like, oh, yeah, get on streams. Yeah. Uh, like, a lot of it's very, very obvious. And to the point where, but they're just continuously pushing it. Like, oh, you have to have a sign up list. And then you have to connect it with this, connect it with that, be on all the social medias. It's like, well, yeah, pretty much everybody knows, yes, pushing things on all the different social medias makes sense. Having a sign up list, whether it's through your actual, crowdfunding site, obviously you should do that. And having your own personal one to where if you go to conventions and such that you can have a QR code and boom, they sign up to the mailing list and you can keep them updated and let them know when a campaign launches. But again, that's just really basic building blocks of marketing a crowdfunder. But they will paint it as if it's like this monumental approach. Like, hey, you got to look at how I'm doing it. Like, I'm great at marketing and sales, blah blah blah. When really it's like, yeah, this is kind of common knowledge. And what's ironic is some of those folks don't believe you should like ask for promotion, which I think that advice right there is the worst advice when it comes to marketing. I would not be in the position I'm in right now. I wouldn't have had a successful campaign if I would not have asked folks for promotion. Like if I wouldn't have asked to jump on their streams, and I wouldn't have found some of my artists if it weren't for that as well. Wouldn't have made some of the friends that I've made. So that is like the worst marketing advice ever is don't ever ask anyone for promotion or help in networking. It's about how you approach. So yeah, maybe if you were to go into some details about like, hey, this is how you should respectfully ask or inquire about marketing, that'd be one thing. But again, most adults know how to respectfully ask for things like that. So nothing groundbreaking by any means. The other thing that's been talked a lot about is right, whether or not reach has any impact on sales, which is just it's silly. And let me actually pull up a tweet here that's relevant to this. I think everyone should know at least that hey, if you have a large Twitter following or YouTube, subscriber count, you have a much higher chance of having a higher funded campaign. And if you don't end up having a higher funded campaign, then you probably failed at marketing along the way. But you do have a natural advantage over everybody else, folks that do not have a following and do not have reach, because those two things equate to reach. That's for sure. Let me find this link here. All right, here we go. Thank you, Katie, and welcome. So this was an exchange between friend of the channel, Elliot Rodriguez, and Eric July. Of course, it's pertaining to one of the new campaigns, Mighty Golden Patriot on Ripasend. But Elliot said, for the amount of subscribers that Yellow Flesh has, 1,000 books is what you would expect to be sold within a few hours, and I would agree with that. And we've seen many larger CG creators achieve that with much smaller subscriber accounts or amounts. But he says, in just a few hours, not in one day, especially on launch day, for what was expected to be this, expert, 1,000 is a disappointment. And Eric responds in what he would, I'm sure, consider a professional manner, saying, "This is a typical response from those who do not fully understand how business operates." I love how he does that every time. He assumes nobody knows business, right? That he's the only one that knows business. And it would be hilarious if he were to accidentally say this to someone that is like a business, a corporate executive or someone that's, you know, a multimillionaire, because they would just laugh and they could show some receipts. But um and quite frank, I have more business and corporate experience than he does, but nevertheless. So he says, comes from those who don't fully understand how business operates, particularly when it comes to social media. It reflects a very surface level view of business dynamics. Subscriber counts do not automatically translate into sales. Views do not automatically translate into sales. Prominent comic book names who do videos regularly, rarely command massive viewership. The reverse is also true. Without proper context, using these metrics to assess success is deeply flawed. So let's break that down a little bit. Subscriber counts do not automatically translate into sales. Mm, it can, right? If you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, there's no way that's not going to translate into at least some sales. And it's a fact that higher subscriber counts and higher follower counts give you a much higher chance of capturing sales. Why? Because you have an automatic avenue to get your product, your book, in front of folks, right? Whether or not that's through tweets or whether or not that's through YouTube. Common sense, right? Whereas most of us, whether you have 500 followers or 500 YouTube subscribers or just a few thousand, your reach is most likely within those 3,000, and then maybe a little help from a couple other folks, right? Maybe you'll reach 5,000 if you're lucky on a tweet. Folks that have hundreds of thousands, their videos literally get in front of those hundreds of thousands. Maybe they don't all view the content obviously each time, but it is going to get in front of more people than someone that has 3,000 subscribers or 3,000 followers. That's just a fact. There's no way to argue that, which means there's a much higher possibility that you're going to garner more sales. To me, that's common sense. If for some reason you do not get higher sales or that you have a very low conversion rate, that means you messed something up along the way. Meaning, oh, I don't know, you didn't build enough hype around the launch, right? Were there a bunch of tweets, I don't know, a couple weeks at least beforehand saying, like, hey, this is the launch date. Get ready. If you pick it up on the first day, you get a free trading card or something. Like, was there any incentive to pick it up on the first day? Uh, was there even, again, a bunch of videos, whether it's YouTube or where there's streams where you're pushing that date, right? Getting people hyped up. Make sure that you're utilizing that reach. In this case, I don't think that happened. We know it didn't happen for Gooding, right? That was a good example. And actually, there's been a ton of stealth launches, which I don't recommend anybody ever do a stealth launch. And here's why. You want to raise as much money on the first day as on the first day as you can. Why? It's optics. When potential backers and other creators see that you've raised a bunch of money on the first day, well, they're going to want to join in, right? If something barely raises anything, they're less likely to be impressed. They may think like, oh, well, maybe it isn't that good. Who knows, right? Every potential customer has a different mindset. But if you raise a bunch of money, there's hype around that. There's FOMO, um, and it gives you better marketing strategy because you can then say, oh man, on the first day, we hit this amount. Like this is going awesome. You don't want to miss this out, right? You can build momentum off of that versus you don't get many backers, right? Like it's going to help you. And so to say that, views and subscriber counts don't translate into sales, they always will to an extent. That's why almost anyone with a huge YouTube channel can sell about anything and at least get a decent amount of sales. And then, a lot of the counters, which I'm sure we'll see when we go down the thread, will be, oh, but most of the audience isn't into comics. Not all their videos are about comics. That doesn't matter. If someone is interested in you as a person, your content, your verbiage, your narrative, whatever, they will want to support most of your endeavors. And I think a lot of crowdfunding people know that, right? They'll have family members and friends pick up their book, even if they're not big into novels or comics, because they just want to support you. And you, of course, want to sell to everyone. You should be trying to convince every single person, regardless of if they're interested in comics or not, to buy your comic. And if you're not trying hard or not, if you haven't figured out a good strategy to do that, well, then maybe you're not that good at marketing, right? Maybe your publisher isn't doing that good of a job convincing new people to pick up a comic. So let's go a little bit down into this. And I don't know even why he said anything about, well, we know why he said, something about prominent comic book names, about them streaming and doing videos regularly. They do command pretty decent viewership, right? We've seen that when Shane, when EVS, when they stream, they're pulling in 500, 1,000 plus people. That's pretty massive for a comic book creator, especially indie. And it's actually a larger viewership than what he is getting. Usually he's getting maybe 400 live viewers. So, and it does translate into sales. That's why these guys are getting the numbers that they're getting. Why? Because of that reach. When you can instantly get that book in front of 500 to a few thousand people, you have a much higher chance of getting a few hundred to 1,000 backers quite quickly versus someone that might stream to 10, 20 people. I mean, it's obvious. It's in the numbers. So Elliot says that just makes it worse. If you can't sell your product to people who follow you, your own immediate audience, then how do you expect to run a business? Where can you find success if you can't sell to your own? I do think that's a fair point. Now, of course, Elliot knows, right? You're not going to sell to everyone, right? There are going to be There is going to be a target audience within your audience, absolutely. But when you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, I'm sure, especially when part of your content is around comics and films, at least 5% of them, you can get them interested. You should be able to. Even if it's 1%, and let's say you have 500,000 subs, that's still darn good. And then you got to get the rest by getting on Twitter, going on other people's streams. But if you're just going to rely on your own stream and your own audience, you're messing up. You need to get on other streams that can get you in front of, maybe another 5,000 new potential customers here and there. And then, Eric responds, has sold to over 1,000 people. You have a lot to learn about business, my friend. How? Tell him what does he need to learn? Like he's acting as if selling something to 1,000 people makes you a business person, a good business person. No, it does not. And this, was one of those topics we reviewed the other day was revenue and sales do not equate to success. Margins and gross profit do. If your profit is only $1 per book, well, shit, you're screwed as an indie comic book creator. You only made $1,000, right? So again, it's that assumption that nobody knows business. Everyone is beneath him, and it's very belittling. But yeah, and Elliot says it undersold to only 1,000 people out of 500,000 plus potential customers. Frame it however you want, but those are the numbers. That's true. Eric says, no, that's not. Oh, this is a lengthy response here. No, that's not how any of this works. You're wrongfully assuming so many things, and what things? And it shows how out of touch you are on this. hmm It is unlikely that all of his subs know this even exists. Common sense. He's not saying that that's the case. Nobody gets viewership of all their subs on every video. Well, Eric clearly knows that with his, recent viewer counts. So it is especially silly to expect all of them to buy something. He never said he expected all 500,000 to buy it. He's saying he expected more than 1,000 books to be sold. Again, it's not 1,000 backers, it's 1,000 books. They could have picked up 2 covers, 3 covers, 4 covers. It most likely is maybe it's 500 backers. But it is interesting. I don't think he even has a tracker for backers. Now it's all about books. That's like the focus, which is kind of interesting. He also says it's been one day. All sales do not happen in one day. Duh. Just because you have an audience does not mean that all of them are buyers of any item you put out. He has basically repeated that twice in this response. And Elliot never assumed that or said that. Some audience are more or less ripe. Okay, well, then you got to work hard and make sure that they get interested in it. Build some intrigue around it. Make sure that the story and the art can at least pull them in a little bit. But if you do not gain your audience, if you, but if you did not gain your audience by selling said thing, it's foolish to think that even the majority of them will purchase an item that differs from it. He's selling rage bait. That's what most of these people sell is rage bait and culture war, right? Nonsense. Well, then he should be marketing it as something that is fighting the culture war, right? Like make it fit in with the narrative you push. And if you're not doing a good job intriguing your customers even on that bullshit, then again, you're not doing something right. And Elliot says that's why I said potential customers, and that's true. Every single person that sees your book, sees your campaign, clearly is a potential customer. Everybody on this planet is a potential customer to an extent. Every adult or person that could actually purchase a comic, right? And he's now Eric saying they are not customers at all. He literally just said potential customers. Like a customer is obviously someone that's already purchased it. They are followers of a YouTube channel. This is why I said they're more or less ripe for something you may sell. What are they? Fruit? Come on. Um, but to try to deem something as a failure based on conversion rate of followers, especially those that didn't follow you for that product you're selling, he's never sold that product. Obviously, his subscribers are not from making a comic, just like Eric had never made a comic, right? Before he made ISOM. He pushed rage bait and political shit, right? Not making comics. So this goes on and on. And Elliot just keeps reaffirming, I am saying potential customers, potential. And he just cannot wrap his head around. He says, potential is nonsensical as you're attempting to tie it rather than, or rather have it be the main contributing factor to conversion rate of sales. Eyes are eyes. Anyone that views it is a potential customer. If you do not convert them, obviously it impacts the conversion rate. But yeah, that's kind of where I want to. It just keeps going and going, but it's very similar to the lengthy back and forth I had with him like 3 years ago about promoting others. Like it's just, you could not get him to wrap his head around how it could be beneficial from a marketing standpoint. Okay, let's get into that right now. One thing that, in my opinion, as an indie creator, that matters is optics. If you come across like a massive asshole, that's not going to help you gain backers, especially if you are doing that to other creators without reason. You're going to push their backers away. The other part of it is if you're purposely not promoting others, it's going to damage how other creators view you, right? That is why I very quickly stopped promoting, Eric's work early on, was because I saw him like, hey, he's on all these streams, all these people are promoting him, but damn, I don't see him promoting anyone, like inviting them on his channel and all that. And again, this is my own thing, but I won't promote folks that don't promote anybody else, like at all. Like if they seem like they're only in it for themselves and they don't give a shit about the indie community or helping others, like I don't want to promote them and I don't want to back them. And the thing is, I think there's a lot of creators out there that feel the same, where it's like, hey, this person, they're just trying to make money. That's it. And again, not saying anything wrong with trying to make money. You should be trying to maximize your business. Absolutely. But promoting others helps you maximize it more. Why? If you go on another stream, talk it up with them, get in front of their viewers, your reach just grew, right? Because that's more eyes on your comic and that's more potential subscribers to YouTube. It compounds. And this mindset of, well, I'm only going to go on huge channels, right? It's got to be like someone that has thousands of live viewers or gets thousands of views. It's quite ridiculous. Why? Because it's true, every backer counts, even when you're bigger, because attrition happened in his case. Obviously his backer, supporter, customer base has shrunk over time. If he would have promoted more people, supported more creators would have continued to promote him and his network would have grown. Because I think he's getting less promotion from, his friends' channels that have large viewership, which is quite interesting. To where I honestly I think he could help, or he could use the help of smaller creators. Um, so when you're a smaller creator, let's say, if you're getting whether it's $500 in funds or 50,000, it's good to have. I mean, you should naturally want to not be a selfish asshole, right? But like, you should want creators and backers to see that, like, you actually care about the community, you're involved, you want to help others. Because when you can have even the smallest connection with a backer or other creators that, oh, like, yeah, he's a cool guy. Like, I like that he does this, and this. Oh, I'm gonna go check out his campaign. I'm gonna back him, not just because his book looks good, because I like how he presents himself. I like that he's involved, right? That happens 10, 20, 30, or in maybe Eric's case, 200 times. I mean, 200 backers, right? That's significant. But if you don't do that, then yeah, there's a good chance that you're going to kind of ostracize yourself when it comes to the community, and you're going to get less backing and less support. Let's see who's in the chat here. Got on my rant and not paying attention. We have Andrew Campbell. Welcome, welcome. We have Mr. Salty Draws. Everybody make sure you go back. Silence Do Good, the graphic novel. That's going to be closing out. I think he said on the 13th, so in a couple weeks. Definitely go support that. We have Black Angus Reviews. Welcome. Thanks for being here. And Mr. Awesome Michael Ferraro. Welcome. How is it going? Let's take a look at another tweet that's around campaign funding. Thought it was kind of interesting here. Apologize, my voice is shit. My allergies are out of control. Happens when you move to another part of the country, I guess. All right. So, as you guys know, I always get a kick out of Draw and Talk or Tyler Carpenter's tweets and videos. So let's take a look at these. What's going on, Jimmy the Lumberjack? Thanks for being here. Yeah, apparently I am smug and not a real comic book creator now. So I should just change my title to Not a Real Comic Book Creator. uh, so Tyler says, stop complaining about creators not making 100K plus on crowdfunding. It's ridiculous. Here's the hard truth about crowdfunding in indie comics using Kickstarter data. So I don't think many people are actually complaining about um, folks not making or themselves not making 100,000. I think most of us realize what's a realistic funding goal or potential outcome. Obviously, 100K is kind of that, like, wow, that would be amazing goal. We all want to get there. It's what we dream of. Getting six figures is impressive. Doesn't obviously translate to a lot of profit, right? Because you got print costs, you got shipping, and all of that. But it's still it's still a huge achievement, and will most likely give you money to recoup your costs and then hopefully pay for your next project. Which that's what you can't beat right there, is being in that situation. But yeah, of course, some people will, whether it's, viewers, other creators, they will kind of gauge whether or not a certain level of creator or a creator with a large following, large subscriber account, if they don't hit 100,000, then yeah, they may be like, that's strange. Like, maybe they're not performing as well, something's off. They might use that as a gauge in regards to success or not. But I don't think people are like complaining that it's not happening or they're not hitting it. I mean, we all know that indie comics in general are not funding as highly as they were 6, 7 years ago, and all of that. Yeah, the economy is not great, but again, you can still market yourself well enough to work around that and get backers. So he says, if you launch on Kickstarter, you have a 68% chance of funding. Well, that doesn't really matter whether or not you fund, right? Because a lot of people put a just a placeholder, right? Even if it's 500 or $1,000, a lot of times people put half of what they really need to recoup, um, potentially because you want to go in demand. I mean, I put 5,000, I wanted to put 10,000, but I needed to make sure I hit my goal so I could go in demand. I needed that runway, and that length of time to actually make sure I could get on more channels, network more, get a YouTube channel going, all of that. And I'm very, very glad that I set my goal as low as I did, because if I wouldn't have, well, then I wouldn't have funded, and I maybe would have raised 6,000 and I wouldn't have raised the 15,000. And that's the money that allowed me to make the comic I'm currently working on. But I'm not a real comic book creator, even though I'm creating a comic book, according to Tyler. Um, so he says, if you have funded, here's where you will land. Less than 1,000 is 11%. 1,000 to 10,000, 62.74%. 10,000 to 20,000, your top 12%. 20 to 100, which is a huge range, is also basically 12%. And then only 1.78% hit, 100,000 plus, and then 0.03%, 1 million. So you're saying, 73% of creators will land below a 10K campaign, which is understandable, especially since a lot of them, it's their first campaign, or they're folks that have a very low follower count, right? They don't have a huge reach. I mean, we're indies. It's kind of a given. He says the key to indie comics is to keep growing and growing. If you don't hit with your first book, make a second and a third. I'm going to disagree with that to an extent. Obviously, you need to grow over time, you need to improve over time, but it's not just about churning out more and more books. It isn't that simple. It's about improving on the quality. Or if you want to hit the ground running on your first campaign, right? Invest in it. Get the best artist that you possibly can. Um, you know, take some risks to make sure that it is as impressive as possible, versus just, well, I'll just hire whoever just so that I can get the book out there. I think that that's where a lot of people struggle. And there's a fine line between, finding someone that's a good fit for your story, where the art looks really good, and then just hiring somebody without, getting a bunch of samples and betting a bunch of people, just like rushing it and like, oh, that's within my budget. Let's just go with that. There's got to be due diligence, is essentially what I'm saying. And so you need to make a splash, which means having a great marketing strategy right off the gate, doing research, seeing what other people are doing, not necessarily emulating them, but watch their YouTube content, look at how they phrase their tweets, listen to how they pitch their book, and find out what's the best fit for you. Observing others and trying to make a splash, to me, is the key to having, and obviously having unique characters, unique art, a strong IP. That's the key to indie comics, and talent, right? If you don't have the talent and your artists don't have the talent, it doesn't matter how many times you make a book, right? You're not going to grow. But again, that's that whole, like, just quantity, quantity. I think that mindset is really damaging a lot of indie creators. And then he goes to say a really nice thing here. He says, "A retarded fool once asked me, if you know all these marketing secrets, how come you are not a millionaire in comics?" Says, "A very childish question to ask. Their site is so tiny, and yet their mustache is so outlandish." He's taking jabs without naming a name about another indie creator. Like the ridiculous, well-written alien noir stories they insist on, and now he's getting just gross. Seems like he's a little bit bothered by someone, getting a little bit emotional about it. But anyways, uh, he doesn't have an active campaign right now, but Tony James has a property called Star Noir, which has successfully funded several times. I think he's raised well over 20 or so thousand or $30,000 so far, and it looks really, really high quality and well done. And I plan on picking it up during his next campaign. So definitely recommend folks check that out. I mean, even just go to Indiegogo, look up Star Noir, and just take a look at it. That way, once you see it on Twitter, the next time it comes around, you guys don't miss it. But like, okay, saying, why aren't you a millionaire? Yeah, obviously there's some hyperbole to that. Um, Anyone that's doing indie comics understands, right? Being a millionaire or being able to do this full time is insanely difficult. But it would be fair to ask, like, hey, why aren't you pulling 20, $30,000 consistently on your books if you kind of claim to be this like top notch marketer, right? With all this knowledge, right? Because you should have this huge sign up list. You should have a huge network. You should have mastered your pitch, how to utilize all the different social medias. But if you're not hitting those numbers, something must be off. That could be, again, you're not building enough hype. You're trying to run too many campaigns simultaneously or one after the other to where it's like your backers can't even necessarily keep up financially, or they're not investing more into one campaign because they're saving some of their funds for the next campaign because it's going to be hitting so quick. Or the art or the story is just not that intriguing. It doesn't have that wow factor. And that's why, for me personally, I would recommend a new creator or someone that's trying to build, their business. Instead of trying to spread out your funds, your resources to a bunch of different projects, focus on making one as great as possible, the best art possible, and make sure it has that wow factor. Just put all of your effort into that. Maximize that so that you can maximize the sign up list, maximize the backer count, and then use that as a springboard or a launching pad, right, for your second campaign. Use just all of your time you can hyping that book up, pitching it, selling it, and then you can rinse and repeat with the next one. But if you're taking time and resources away from building that one campaign up and putting it on several books, I do think you're doing yourself a disservice, honestly. So again, focusing on quality and making a splash versus quantity. And then again, if your second campaign, as soon as you have a second campaign, you have quantity, right? You can then sell two books because you can have a catch up tier. And then the third campaign, you have three books, right? And so on and so forth. That's where quantity is your friend. That's where you use marketing to increase the spending per customer, right? You want the average backer, you know, um, funding essentially to be higher campaign over campaign. Another quantity related item that you can use as a marketing tool to raise more funds is obviously variant counts, having different variants, for covers. But I do think that you have to limit yourself to an extent because of minimum order quantity, setup costs, and the printing strategy. But what about a black and white variant, right? Because then you can go have a bundle package, right? Offer lower pricing. If you buy two, it's a lower price per book, and then obviously you're going to save on shipping because they're both going to be shipped together. But that's how you can get your spend per backer up, and then get your funding up, and then your optics look even better. You look like more of a success. You get more people that will have FOMO. They'll want to back it, and then you just push that momentum on the next campaign. And I honestly, I even for this would be small advice for Aaron, for Immortal Horizon, offer a black and white variant. I would buy it. Most times I pick up both, especially if the art looks really good. I personally love the feel and vibe of black and white art. Maybe it's because of Sin City, but it, it can be a really enjoyable experience to go through and read it again, but in black and white, and really be able to see how talented and skilled the line artist and the inker is. So, but that's an easy way to just, you know, just have it as a bundle or have it as an add-on, right? That way you can prevent from someone just picking up the black and white potentially if you want to make sure it's in a bundle, but make people not just intrigued in one book, but getting both. That way you can get higher funds. But that's a way that you can use strategy to get your funding up so that you can then use that funding to create more content, better content for your backers. And that'll also give you more flexibility on pricing in the future as well, right? If you have a more successful first campaign and you have a higher backer count than you expected, then the next campaign you're like, I know I'll have a higher chance of maybe getting 500 backers. So now, you know what? I can give back and I can reduce my price from 25 to 22 or 20 or something, right? And then you can use that as, part of your marketing. Like, hey, I'm able to offer lower prices, and there's a catch-up tier. So again, there's a lot of things that these marketing gurus or people that say they're so good at sales and marketing that you don't hear them talk about that can really, really help new creators. Then he goes on to say this isn't a get rich quick game. This is a long journey. Some people are still playing in the first inning, others are in the third or the fifth. The key is to keep learning lessons and applying them and growing. The difference is some of us like to share the scraps of info we learn along the way. So how do you grow in comics? You don't quit. You keep creating. That's a decent sentiment, but again, it goes beyond. It's not just you don't quit, you keep creating. You improve over time by hiring the best artists that you can, taking a little bit more risk, and learning the craft, not just creating at the same level and not advancing. Again, whether it's in the storytelling or in the art. So it's not so simplistic. Just like, yeah, some of the scraps that people are giving on marketing, it's just common sense, right? Have a sign up list, like I said. Network, duh, use social media. Like, no. How about strategies on maximizing the funds that you can receive on a campaign, right? What can you offer? How can you build hype around the first day of your campaign? Like, how can you incentivize your backers? Offering a free trading card, like what extras can you offer to where people are like, man, this is really a good value, and what can you do for your tweets, for example? One thing I like to do is character introductions. You know, give a pitch for each individual character so that maybe some of these potential customers could be like, "Oh, I relate to that character. I really like what they did with him. Like, I like that this villain is like a sick, evil bastard, and that he's not going to make him sympathetic, towards him." Have them not just be drawn to the property and the art. Have them try to get them drawn to a character before they've even read the story, right? Show individual art for each character, not just like, hey, this is their name. They have super speed. Like, no, what are their motivations? What kind of a person are they? Things like that. But there's, you know, properly framing some tweets to show comparable properties, things like that. There's so many different ways that you can utilize tweets or Facebook posts as a marketing strategy to gain more customers. So, and the same thing with how do you set up your campaign? How do you do the layout of your campaign? Thumbnails. Like, there's a lot of things that a lot of these people that push marketing, they're not going into these details or things that could really, really help people versus just the like milk toast takes, or I don't know, advice. Yeah. Yeah, if you can't tell, I get kind of annoyed when it comes to seeing some of these marketing posts and such where you like, it's almost like I don't know how I should frame this, but to me, it's almost like kind of disrespectful to people that you're like assuming that they're this unintelligent that they don't know they should have a sign up list. Um, I don't know, like oh, I am above people and like I have all this wisdom and all that. And it's like I'm not gonna lie, I'm going to observe people that are making $100,000 on a campaign or doubling from 1,000 to 2,000 to 4,000, right? That they're consistently growing. I'm going to be observing what they're doing and I'm more likely to take their advice than someone that is stagnant or, they have campaigns bouncing up and down and they're going way down. So, yeah, let's check in with the chat. Get some coffee. Voice is going. And Salty is definitely a wealth of knowledge when it comes to creating art since he can do freaking everything on a comic. So super, super impressive. Jimmy the Lumberjack asks, question on stretch goals. Are those lofty goals or realistic goals? Um, Everybody does it differently. I like to have a mixture of both, honestly, just to have fun with it. Like my first stretch goal was 5,500, so it was like $500 beyond funding. For a print for Joe Ball's awesome black and white cover, right? I just wanted to make sure everyone got that art in case they didn't pick up the black and white mini comic. And then, I think I don't remember if I even had any stretch goals until like, I don't know, hitting 20 or 30 or something. Like, you do want to have, something kind of fun, like, hey, oh, maybe it's crazy. Maybe I'll get 20,000. But yeah, if it's 20,000, you'll get, a fun tchotchke or something, and then, oh, maybe if I hit 50,000, you'll get, if it's a novel, like an audiobook, because then you could definitely afford to do that. Or like I'll get a tattoo of the character or something stupid, but like, hey, if you raise that money, you'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But I think it's good to set some incremental goals that are realistic with things that you can realistically and affordably give away to backers, obviously. But personally, I'm really happy that even without the stretch goals that I did prints and bookmarks because they're not really expensive to print and you can just slide them right in with the comics or the books and I don't know, it's just kind of a nice little thing to have and bookmarks were functional as well. And me as a creator and I just enjoyed that part of fulfillment, like, putting the bookmarks together and stuff. And, who knows? The other thing too is let's say someone really likes the bookmarks and they use it when reading another book and they're out at a coffee shop or somewhere in public. Someone may walk by and look at that bookmark and be like, hey, what is that? And then that may be a potential customer in the future. So it can be marketing material as well. And you can use your existing art from the comic or your covers to help with those prints and those giveaways. You don't have to necessarily commission new art because that's where it gets expensive and risky if you're like commissioning art for bookmarks, commissioning art for prints, commissioning all this extra art that isn't going to go in the comic or on the comic that it's like that adds up. Oh, we have Mr. Christopher Bouchard. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Stop Comics. How's it going? Thanks for being here. If you knew how to grow in comics, you wouldn't have said, "Don't quit." True. Yeah, definitely that can help in prose. Um, having and I mean, just from my own experience, being able to release books one and two together was the best thing I could have done. because probably 75% of people picked up both. Versus if I would have just had one, I wouldn't have been able to raise as much. And then people would have had to come back it again. They would have had to pay for shipping twice over, right? So, and if once I have a third novel, right, it's going to help to be able to to sell all three. And it helps you on Amazon when it can, you can redirect them to the second book and all that. So, and then you have the ability to make a duology, right? Just combine some of your books, make it more affordable for people. So yeah, that definitely can help over time, but don't rush it. Don't think like, hey, I need to have quantity first. Like, no, make sure that that first book is the best it can be. Invest in that. And when you're 100% comfortable with it, then go on to the next one. Maybe you want to kind of shelf the first one and wait to release it until the second one is done. It's not a bad idea. Um, or again, you get some great reviews and great customers on the first book, then they'll naturally maybe go towards the second one. But if you have a day job, if you have a family, novels take a very long time to uh, to release. So it might take you a couple years in between. So that's where having maybe two or so to release at the same time can really help because as soon as I finish the first one, I can immediately buy the second one versus having to wait several years. We have amazing gaming productions. Thanks for being here. Jimmy says the quantity argument in economics assumes that everyone will want the item as demand is price driven. Hibbity jibbity. Amazing Gaming Production says, I know what you're saying. Having too much scope can kill you. I know this has helped me. Now that heroic histories are done, I'm going to update the rule book with all the new rules and character progression. Yeah. Yeah, it's about learning as you release new titles and just as you get experience networking and just marketing in general. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? You should already have all your art in black and white. And if you have it as a bundle or as a an add-on or both, you should have it as both. It's not going to hurt your printing MOQs or anything, right? Because you're not taking away from the colored version. You're just doing a separate print run, and it is cheaper to print the black and white comic naturally. So there's that incentive too of like, hey, not only can you get two different books, right? Because it is going to have a different feel to it. The art will be different without the color. It's going to be cheaper, and I can give you a bundle price. So again, it's not just marketing as a sense of networking, sign up list, how you pitch your book, but also how you sell, how you price, right? How you are setting up your page and all of that. The other thing too is original art. That's one downside of working with a digital artist is you can't sell original art. I mean, you can sell posters and prints and stuff, but you know, always keep in mind like, hey, if I work with certain artists, I might be able to sell original art that can pay for your cover art. Selling Joe Ball's art paid for the cover art and then some. Like it ended up being free. You can't beat that. So that was a huge advantage. And that's another thing when it comes to marketing is you got to think outside of yourself and your book. Yes, you have to find an artist that is a good fit for your story and your characters, obviously. But you also have to think, how can working with a certain artist or range of artists help my marketing, right? Names can garner reach. You hire someone that's really popular, has a large follower count, is really well known for art, there's a good chance they're going to retweet you. There's a good chance that they may even send it to their sign up list, right? They may help you extra and try to push your campaign. So you have to also have a marketing strategy of how can my artists and those that I hire help my marketing, right? Whether it's just your marketing material, like their art, or, will you gain potential reach by working with them versus just like well, I can afford this person, the art's good enough, but if I'm not going to grow my reach by working with them, like, is that a good idea? So there is a benefit to, right, the name and how well known your artists are. So that's something that you have to keep in the back of your mind when it comes to your marketing strategy. And it helped me. I mean, Corey was known in the space. People knew his art, they liked his art, and I can guarantee you it helped me get backers. Same with Joe, obviously. Helped me sell art. It helped me sell, some sketch cards, right? And that's another thing. Is like, hey, there's a lot of times you can get some awesome sketch cards that can bring in funding as well. And so, just think of, what else, you know, can help your campaign as a result of hiring certain people. It can grow your network, it can give you reach, it can get you on more platforms, on more shows. Like there's so much more than just hiring people. You gotta think beyond that. And there's so much more to marketing than just sign up list and again, all the basic stuff. You gotta dive deeper to figure out what else can help me potentially get sales and get in front of people. It's all about reach. To me, reach is king. And we're gonna talk about talent and whether or not that's enough to get by, right? People haven't seen that video by Eric, but outside of talent and ability, reach is king. It's all about how many eyes will see your book. The more eyes that see your book, the higher probability you have of having a higher funded campaign. Mikey Goet says there's so many books we can't back everyone. True. But you, Shane, EVS, Shanth, Bosch, and at Salty as the top priorities. Oh, thank you. It's very humbling. Appreciate that. Not trading especially. Yes, absolutely. I'm not a trader. I'm not a backstabber. No worries or concerns there. Jimmy says, if you do a black and white book, you save on the colorist, but does the inker and artist have to put more into it because of shading? Asking because I'm not an artist and know nothing. Um, I mean, that's another thing too. Is I mean, look at Sin City, right? It's dependent on the style of the artist. Somebody like Joe Ball could put out solely a black and white book, or he could do my book in just black and white, and it would sell because of how heavy his inks are and how detailed his line art is. It's captivating enough to sell in just black and white. Um, I don't know if they necessarily have to worry about shading so much. I mean, to me, a good colorist is going to be able to work with a highly detailed, line artist or, personally, I like to hire someone that does the line art and inking versus having to have three separate artists. Um, so I would want them to basically create a book as if it is good enough to sell as black and white, and then let the colorist, be able to do their magic, with that in mind. But for me, it's like, hey, if you can afford to do a colored version, do it, but sell the color version and the black and white and offer a bundle option. Because me as a backer, I'll want to back that if I really, really enjoy the artist's work. But as a creator, I think it really gives you a higher chance of someone picking up more than just one book, picking up two, maybe picking up three, or four if you have variants, right? That's right. Be great. All right. Hey, Katie. So she says, I want to ask BA, and it's okay to be brutally honest. Did I make a bad choice in promoting Dillard today? It's been a roller coaster, and I understand how CG feels, and not, and they're not wrong in those feelings. I'd say no, you didn't make a bad choice. I think you're just being kind. I don't think anyone's gonna fault you for that. And that's the thing that I appreciate about you and others that you will promote people that are CG adjacent, or non-CG, right? I think both of us kind of have the same feeling of we just won't promote folks that are like blatantly anti-creator or group of creators. Um, I that one's tricky because I did see a lot of streams where, yeah, he didn't really stand up for you with all the bullshit that was being flung at you and the disgusting accusation and jokes and stuff. So I would understand if you would have had the stance of not promoting him because of that, because you were the one dealing with all that bullshit. Um, so I think either way you're fine. Honestly, doesn't bother me that you promote him. I do appreciate the fact that Dillard is willing to chat with you, potentially be on your stream, things like that. So kudos to him for that. Um, Definitely want him to succeed as a creator. I'm glad that his campaign that he will solely benefit from is getting some eyes. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. From after this campaign with Yellow Flash, but definitely you shouldn't feel bad about doing it. You're just following your gut and trying to help others. So absolutely nothing wrong with that. Honestly, I think you should feel good about that. And yeah, obviously you're not promoting anyone that was directly, you know, trying to cause you harm or anything. Because yeah, definitely you don't need to, and some could say you shouldn't promote those unless they apologize or something. But yeah, nope, don't think you're in the wrong at all. And thank you. Yeah, I always forget to say subscribe, like, and all that. I'm much better at promoting books than I am YouTube. That's something I'm still learning, right? Is how to promote my YouTube channel, get new subscribers. I don't really have I don't know, I don't have, like Shane's got his mange and all that. Like, I'm not a super energetic, guy or anything. I like to just talk about topics and give my opinion, but I do need to work on finding some strategies to grow this channel because I know I'll need it. When my sign up page starts and when I have my campaign, I do need to be better at bringing people on the channel. I almost feel selfish, like if I were to reach out to folks, that have a larger, follower count or subscriber count than me. Um, I feel guilty. Like, hey, can you come on my channel? Because obviously it's going to be more beneficial to me. But like once Shane has a new campaign or John, I'll definitely invite them on because yeah, I know that they appreciate every backer that they get. So, they're not, an elitist or whatever. They're like, oh, it's too big, too small channel for me. I do think some people are just too afraid to ask them, but I definitely won't be. But right now, like I know, they have bigger channels and they have their books that they're working on to spend time on. So I don't want to pull them away from that, or I don't want them to feel like they are obligated or need to help me out. So, but yeah, gotta learn marketing strategies for YouTube and all that. But at the same time, I don't have the time or resources to invest into this. This is something I do late on a Thursday. Um, Try to toss a thumbnail together because again, I got to put time into the comic, into the novels, into family, and all that. Those are top priorities, obviously. Yep. Yep. Catch up tier is huge for sure. No, you didn't hurt CG. Definitely not. Don't worry about that. Absolutely not. It's going to be up to the backers, right? The audience. They're simply going to back it or they're not. That's it. They're not going to be upset that you're promoting him. Definitely not. Mhm. Let's see here. So I do want to EFAP Eric July's latest video. Because again, it's relative to marketing and just topics in the indie space. And I do think it's good to talk about this stuff. Um, and yeah, even if Shane had made this video or somebody else, and I would have came across it, I would have EFAP'd it. So yeah, it's just good to have discussions around these things. So let me pull this up. All right. So let me know if there's any audio issues. It should be good. So here we go.
If you are familiar with my videos, you've heard me discuss many times the ability to sell something else and how it's very important. It's vital, especially if you're going to be an independent creator. Now, what I mean by that is that just skating by on your talent alone is nearly impossible in today's day and age, and that's due to many different factors. So you
I would agree. I would disagree with that to an extent, right? Legends can clearly skate by on their talent, right? Because they have name recognition. Clearly, if Frank Miller was to do a crowdfunding campaign, it would make millions. If Alan Moore was to do a crowdfunding campaign, it would make millions. Um, Keanu Reeves, right? He had his book. It raised a ton of money. Why? Because of his name, and because people know he's a talented creative, right? He's just one of those guys like Ben Affleck, right? You listen to him talk, you hear about how passionate they are and how wise they are when it comes to the creative space and making films, telling stories, directing. There's a high probability that whatever they produce is going to be top notch because there's evidence versus right someone that's maybe never made a comic and all of a sudden they're making a comic but they're not expertises in comics. So yes, people like those can definitely skate by on their talent. Even EVS, folks like that, anyone that has a well-known name in comics could skate by on talent alone and not even put a lot of effort into marketing, into YouTubing. It's definitely possible, but they are exceptions to the rule, or his rule, I would say. But I would even say, if an indie came in that was unknown and his art was just mind blowing, I do believe it would raise funds because it would catch the eyes of some well-known YouTubers or creators, and somehow, you know, word would spread. So, but if you're established and people love your books, right, your talent alone can make it sustainable for sure. And like on his initial comment about knowing how to sell, like I don't know if I've really seen any videos where he's actually went into detail about how do you sell, right? How do you frame your pitch? Right? How do you lay out a campaign or a pre-order, like some specific details about how to become better at selling. It's just more of, again, overarching, like, yeah, you need to do this. This is how you become successful, but without the details. Like, the details matter.
have to learn how to sell something else aside from what you are like maybe trying to exchange funds for. Of course, that doesn't mean that talent
Okay, let's back that up. That didn't make much sense.
trying to exchange funds for or something else aside from learn how to sell something else aside from what you are like maybe trying to exchange funds for. Of course,
Okay, you need to learn to sell something else other than what you're trying to exchange funds for. Okay. You're making comics and you're selling comics, you don't necessarily need to learn how to sell anything other than your comics. If your business is comics, you need to know how to sell comics and you need to maximize that ability. You do not need to learn how to sell insurance or sell anything else. Uh, Maybe a small branching out would be, learning how to sell your merch, but that's pretty easy because it's going to be tied to your art. It's going to be tied to your characters, right? You need to learn how to sell your IP. You need to learn how to sell your characters, um, your story, and your art. But you don't need to learn how to sell other things. That would be a waste of your time and talent, in my opinion. So that's a strange statement. Maybe he didn't mean to express it in that way, but to me that was kind of odd.
That doesn't mean that talent doesn't help. It's needed. It's
Talent is the most important thing. Also, having a keen eye for quality, being able to find the right artists and all of that. It's extremely important. If you don't have talent and you can't make a great book, well, again, yeah, you might have some success initially if you have a name, right? Name recognition, even if it's not related to the product you're selling, but um, there's going to be a huge risk of major attrition over time. But if you have the talent and your books are phenomenal, then there's less risk that that attrition is going to happen.
necessary for sure. But you can't just really skate by on that alone. People have so many different options and their exposure to that. I mean, it's so easy. Means have also been decentralized. So there's a lot more people in those markets out there. So I don't ever say that to like get you down and maybe say that
Oh
some of
man,
your training or learning about various
go back. Phenomenal Tales number two, or Phenomenon number two by Patrick Quinlan. That is on Fund My Comic. Do it.
things is unimportant. I'm not saying that at all. It's just how to apply that. You have to have a little know how. The good news is that what you sell or that other thing that you're selling can differ from person to person. And it really is going to be unique to yourself. For us and a lot of people that are kind of in our space, and by us, I'm referring to the Rippaverse. But a big thing that we have is obviously our community is massive, boots to the ground. We're very interactive with our customers, and we're always trying to improve that experience because that's really our selling point, aside from just obviously the stories which we lead with, and that's very important. Our connected universe is a big attraction for a lot of people that are fans of the Rippaverse as well. And so that's just an example, making that kind of unique to ourselves, and not saying unique as in nobody else is
Anyone a little bit lost? Kind of like a lot of rambling without any details or meat.
doing that. It's more that's what we sell aside from that. And our customers care a lot about that. So when you see us like investing really heavily on the customer experience for our website, or we go to these different cons, and it's not just like, hey, there's a guy that represents the company that's going to be there. Oftentimes you see me, the owner, that's going to be there, and I'm out there interacting with all of you. Pretty much all the folks that are in like our corner of the internet value their fellowship a lot. So what that is for you is going to vary from person to person. It's not one singular thing. You just have to find that and really sort of place that in your marketing setup, whatever that may be and whatever that may look like, especially on the digital front. If you look at like entertainment markets, especially like music, people are very open about, hey, just having talent isn't good enough. It's not the primary determinant of whether or not you're going to be successful. And
I'm pretty sure with music, talent is literally going to be the the key component on whether or not you're going to be successful. I mean, let's be honest. Um, Most bands or musicians are successful because they're talented, and then they get picked up by a label, and that label then has people doing the marketing for them, right? Their job is to make the music, right? Go on the tours, they do some extra stuff obviously for promotions, but if they don't have talent, they wouldn't be in the band to begin with, and they wouldn't be able to perform live. Talent is literally everything when it comes to music. Like, yeah, acting, there's some exceptions to the rule because it can be obviously based off of looks. There are plenty of actors and actresses that get hired because of their looks, and then you can tell they're not that great of an actor. But the legends of acting, it's because they're brilliant at their craft. But when it comes to music, like, it can't just be based off of looks, at least for bands, right? Actual talented bands. Like you can't just have a singer or a front runner of a band be good looking but not be able to sing or play the guitar. That would be insanely embarrassing. A little bit different when it's like pop and they can auto tune and they can, you know, freaking lip sync and all that. Like that's, some of them are not that talented. But when it comes to, composers and real musicians, it's literally all about talent. That is what markets them, is the talent. It's the sound. That's what makes people listen to them.
I've also discussed that through the lens of like the rise of AI and how you have a lot of people trying to sidestep creators. And we've already had that discussion, but it's further proof that you have to be able to sell yourself in another way aside from, hey, I got this thing that I've created and it's awesome. Talent is very important. Skill set is very important. The ability to sell is very important. But marketing is one of the things that is constantly changing, and everybody's trying to figure that out, and what that looks like going into the future. So find that unique thing that you can offer aside from just what you're trying to exchange for funds. You still need to lead, obviously, with that thing that you're selling. That's going to be that the front facing.
All right, so maybe he's alluding to, right, you need to be an entertainer of some sort. Sure, that can help. Absolutely. We've seen that with people in our own space, right? That become entertainers on when it comes to live streaming. Yeah, that can be an extra skill or a way to sell yourself. But of course, the core item or the core part of your purpose is going to be selling your books. But outside of, but again, that's just kind of common sense when it comes to, yeah, you're in the indie space, you should probably get on YouTube, you should get in front of people, right? It's about gaining reach, possibly building a connection with your audience by talking to them. Yeah. But outside of that, I mean, unless you think you're gonna like go and learn how to be a comedian and then use that audience to then go to your audience, blah blah blah. Yes, that's what he did, right? He was in music and then he jumped to politics and he went to complaining about comics and complaining about movies and all of that. And then he pulled that audience, obviously, and put his comic in front of it. But I definitely am not going to recommend people like, oh, go do rage bait content or go try to be a musician or go do political commentary in hopes that you're going to build an audience from that and then pull that into your comic sales pitch. It's like, yeah, but then you're pulling yourself away from making your books, from improving your craft. Your focus should be on mastering your craft and then with some of your extra time getting on YouTube, right? Getting on Twitter and all that. But if you draw your focus away from what your focus should be, which is creating, good chance you're gonna actually damage your marketing because you're gonna release less books. Your quality may not improve, which means you're going to garner less new backers, retain less backers because you're over here, trying to build a new audience on something completely unrelated. Like, yeah, it worked for you because you started in those and then went to comics. But if you're in comics, you shouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna try to do something else to then build an audience and bring it to comics. Like, I think that's a great idea.
Thing. But how you market that is where you must really, really get creative. And this is not going to ever be a static thing. It's also something that you're going to be constantly learning on and adjusting. And those that have that ability to adapt are going to be the powerhouses going forward. And I don't really think that mega corporations are going to be able to pivot like that. So that's another advantage to all the independents out there.
Adobe Express.
I don't know what mega corporations have to do with any of this, really. This is the indie space. Uh, yeah, that was kind of a mind-boggling video of just blandness. I don't know. There was no substance to that, in my opinion. All right, let's promote some campaigns. Let's look at some good indie campaigns that you can support. All right. First campaign is Immortal Rising #2, Burnt Offerings. We went over this in BA Recommends, so I highly recommend this book. Again, it raised over like 4,500 on Indiegogo. It's getting close to 1,000 here on Fund My Comic. It'd be awesome if we could hit this goal on here, get his total well over 5,000, maybe get it up to like 6,000 in total, but just fantastic book. Let's take a look at the trailer here.
I'll find you, Locutus, my creator. From your chaotic bones I shall make my order. Congratulations, recruits.
I'm so excited.
I don't want to babysit two spoiled princes.
I need to make a good impression for the soldiers. This is a silly waste of time.
What? Is that my long-lost magic ruby? Empress, find my ruby.
Your will is my command, my master. We're invading Terra to find Balmain's ruby.
Go forth, save the innocent, and punish the wicked.
Yes, Father. I have an easy life. But is that all there is?
The ruby could win this war once and for all. Let's kick the nest and see what falls out.
Locutus calls to his creations for help.
Where are we?
What are those things?
As you can tell, nice blend of manga and Western style art. Really, really nice coloring as well.
Have the gods gone mad?
The Bomanites have invaded Terra. Has the last shard of Locutus' heart been found?
The war cannot continue without the heart. We can't risk losing it if it's there.
You've come to the wrong place. Terra is under my protection.
So let's take a look at some of the covers. So we do have a cover by Mr. Corey Barton for the reprint of issue #1. Definitely pick that up. Obviously some fantastic art as always by him. And we had a cover by Jimmy Reyes for issue #2 here. A lot of affordable options here. Yeah, like the one I got was the, it's 50 pages, glossy, perfect bound, just looks fantastic. Really, really high quality printing. So, and yeah, as you can tell here, some really, really great art from Jose Garcia. It gives a great breakdown of the characters here, which is really cool. Yeah, definitely check this out. It's Immortal Rising #2 by Aaron C. And let's take a look at T-Punk by Vasilis Lolos. All right. So yeah, this is definitely one of the most unique campaigns out there right now. Definitely has some trippy art. For anyone that's into drugs, I'll bet you they would have a blast taking them and reading this. But even for us folks that aren't into that stuff, this looks really, really cool. He's been pretty steadily increasing the funding here on this. And let's check out the trailer here, which is a fun one. obviously this is based on music. The digital version even comes with a soundtrack by Vasilis, which is really cool. I mean, it has a nice retro vibe to this, but yeah, anyone that's a musician into funky music, this is definitely going to be a campaign for you. But yeah, let's see what we can do to get him up to. Oh, he's getting close to 15,000 there, and yeah, let's support Vasily Lolos. Yeah, very cool art on this, and he's actually done some art for like some big like, musicians, stage art and things like that. So he's done a lot of cool things. Yeah, go back this campaign. And then, last but not least, I'm sure everybody knows this creator. Actually, I have two more here, but Cecil's Cash Grab 2. Orange is the new fat. So for anyone that's into comedy and just off the wall humor, this is definitely a campaign for you. A lot of folks, I don't recall what the funding was on the first one, but it was really high. But he's getting closer and closer to 100K. This is the highest funded campaign on Fund My Comic. Has some great cover art here by Dan Lolos here with the Trump cover. Also has a John Malin cover, might have an EBS cover as well, but yeah, definitely some really cool art tied to this. I think the interior art is by I'm drawing a blank. Uh, I'll find out down here, but also the Dale Keown art piece of art, which is just awesome. So yeah, if you like some goofy shit, this is going to be the campaign for you. Oh, Donald Delay. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. But yeah, fun looking campaign here. Gonna have a lot of political jokes, clearly. This got banned from Indiegogo, so definitely go support Cecil here on Fund My Comic. Let's check out the trailer. Go check out Cash Grab 2 on Fund My Comic. And there's one other campaign I want to pull up. This actually launched a couple hours ago. That is Outlaw Knights issue 2. So this was one that I actually backed issue 1. The art looks fantastic on this. I'm going to be reading the first one here, probably for next week's show. But yeah, Ben has put together some really nice looking campaigns, really professional looking. It's got a very cool sci-fi vibe to it. And yeah, there should be a catch-up tier as well. So definitely recommend picking up issues 1 and 2. But yeah, anyone that's into sci-fi is going to like this, but some great looking art. It's a cool cover there. Let's check out that trailer. See what this is about. So yeah, that just launched a few hours ago. Only has a goal of $500, so definitely should be able to get there quite easily. But yeah, definitely recommend checking this out. Let's help Ben Fusebox out. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone being here and for the conversation. I'm a little bit out of it. Again, allergies have been really bad. I haven't got a lot of sleep, so not my normal self, but appreciate you guys bearing with me. And yeah, go back all those campaigns if you can, at least check them out. And then, yeah, for those that are into Trashcast, I think that is streaming. So go over and check that out and tell them I sent you. And yeah, you guys have a great rest of your night and a great weekend. Take care and God bless.